And recording has been started.
Great, fantastic. Now this is being recorded.
Yeah. That's where we left off. Anything you always want to say about that? Or are we good?
All right, so we've done the 5 required documents. Thank myself for doing that. And we're gonna go next. So now we're going to have a caboose.
Yeah, let's
Part of that.
yeah, let's take a minute first. We'll go over the MOA.
Okay, yeah, let's take that moment. Derek's gonna go over the MOA.
Yeah. So let me do that. Let me share my screen here real quick. Can you close that door, Brad? Yeah, I'll switch base with you. I'm gonna start. I'm just showing you. I'm gonna show the rest of that. I just want to pick. They're all here. Okay. Okay, good afternoon again, Derek Durazio here. I'll be talking a little bit about some of the documents that you will receive if you haven't already done so. With respect to an NSGP award, we're going to walk through what the award letter looks like, what the MOA looks like, what the reporting requirement, the report form looks like, and what your cost report form looks like. Okay, we're going to walk through that. So looking at the audience we have today, some of y'all have received FY22 SLCJP funding, right? You already have a grant loans. That's NSGP funding. So the documents we're looking at now are the 22 documents. Okay, that's the last set of documents we've prepared. Some have received a 23 award. You don't have your MOA yet, they're coming, right? Some folks haven't received an award at all and are going to apply again in 24, right? So these are documents you will hopefully see someday if you receive funding from us. Okay? You got a mix of folks here in the audience. All right. So starting with the award letter. Okay, you can scroll out a little bit right on this. So the award letter. This is what you receive when you get an award from us. And you've seen this already. Never backed out the name of the folks who got this award. But basically, what it says at the top right of the screen is what the period of performance of the grant is, what your project is, and how much you got. Right. So that's important information. We're telling you, congratulations, you got an award for this project and this amount. And this is your period of performance. So for the 22 grant, your performance was September 1st, 22, August 31st, 25. That's your pot. That means you have to have all your expenditures incurred within that pot to be reimbursed. That's how much time you have to complete the project and submit your eligible expenditures. Then you get the award letter. Okay. Next document you'll get then is the MOA. When your award letter, you'll tell us who you want to sign your MOA. And we're going to, okay, so we already have it better on the bottom documents there. Or just go there. Sorry, yeah, we'll see it. I'll just pick the MOA. Okay, so then you'll get an MOA. And this document, you scroll out a little bit. This document is a legal document. Okay, it's I think it's 17 pages long or so. 17 pages long. Right now, 17 pages long, but a lot of this is just contingencies that may happen, right? We're kind of covering legal liability in case something happens. The most important provisions of the MOA, I'm going to tell you what paragraphs they are. Okay, these are the ones you need to know to manage your grant every day. There's a lot of stuff, and we don't have time to go through it all, but it's probably never going to happen, right? It's just in case it happens. That's why this stuff gives you a lot of legal language, right? I'm going to let you know just what the most important elements of the MOA are today. Okay. So as you scroll through the MOA, the first page is more just the background of what the program is, what the authorization of the program is, what the statutes are involved, what guidance overall applies to the initiative program. That's your first couple of paragraphs. Okay. Where you really start getting into the important stuff, okay, is paragraph 4 on page 2. funding eligibility criteria. I just want to point out one thing over here. On paragraph 4, if you look at this paragraph 4A, okay, subrecipient must, this is what Brad talked about, where you must make sure you are a qualified 501c3 organization. Okay? And you've already applied and told us you were, right? And now you're signing another legal document saying, yes, I am a qualified 501c3 organization to receive this fund. But it's a nonprofit. There's a lot of different stats of nonprofits out there, right? But you have to be a 501c3 to get this money. Okay, so you're certifying again that you're a qualified 501c3, and some other conditions in it. It's also said you have to have a UID registration. Yeah.
FEMA does have a list of ineligible 501c3s. That's all listed in the MOA. Certain nonprofits that are affiliated with governmental entities, they are not allowed to apply. Even though they are 501c3s, it's because of the partnership that they may have with a local or a county government, local government, state government. There are just a few. There are not a lot, but there are a few.
I don't think anybody we've dealt with so far, Brad, has been on that list.
Not yet, no.
So then if you go down to 4A, little paragraph 7. So 4A7, Brad, that this is the reporting requirements. Okay. So in 22, if you read this was quarterly reports, right? And you email them to us, all right? It's now for 23 report and annual report. Okay. So this is your quarterly report. This tells you what you have to do. It's attachment 2 to the MOA and when it's due. Okay. January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, October 15th. Those are the quarters.
Also, for reporting purposes, here on this MOA, we have the old, well, we still have this email address, the NCEM grants 1, but now for NSGP, we have a dedicated email account, and it's nsgp@ncdps.gov.
We can put that in the chat, Janine. Appreciate that. And then real quick, if you can just show the quarterly report document, just we'll don't X out of it, just go to the quarterly report one. Just write that in. Okay. So this is attachment 2 to the MOA. This is what the report form looks like for 22. For your annual report, it's going to be very similar, except for what we say. Do it once a year, consistent with the state fiscal year. So the first one for 23 will be due for the period ending 6/30/24, but it'll be due by the end of July. Right. Other than that, it's pretty much the same form. This is what you have to report to us for 22 and before quarterly, 23 and beyond annually. Basically, tell us what you're doing with your money. Tell us what progress you made. Even if you don't expend money during that period of time, you still have to file a report. Just say.
Nothing for this part.
We need a report, as long as grants up, we need that report for this period. Go back to me like that. Okay. So then, what's the next thing we're talking about? Okay. If we go to paragraph 5 of the MOA, okay. Paragraph 5A, all right. Basically, what this is saying in paragraph 5A, little 4, no match requirement. Okay. So you have no match requirement for this grant. Okay. Some grants will say give you $50,000, but you have to match that dollar for dollar, right? So you have to pay $50,000 too, right? We don't have that for this grant. You get this money with no match requirement. You can spend your own money all you want, but you're not required to. Okay, this is a strict, pure no match grant. That's the beauty of the nonprofit security grant program, with no match required. Okay. Now, the next important paragraph, okay, as Michelle mentioned, you got a B there, paragraph B. So this is 5B on page 3. The required documents that Michelle mentioned. And anywhere you see this blue text in the document electronically, that's an active hyperlink. Okay. If you click on that hyperlink, that takes you to the correct form. So had you known, if you had your MOA, right, you would have clicked on that, it will take you to the form. This is also, we have this information on our website as well, with the links to the correct forms. Okay. But these are the links to the actual forms you have to complete. These 5 required documents are required only one time. Okay, so once you file these documents with us, you are good, even if you get future grants with us. Okay, the only time you have to replace it is you update or change something on your own. So let's just say you file a tax document, electronic vendor payment form, you're good for the rest of your life as far as we're concerned with us. But however, let's say your bank changed and you got to file a new electronic vendor payment form, or your tax information changed, you got to file a new W-9 form, right? So once you do it once, you're good unless something changes on your house end. All right. We mentioned a procurement policy. That's your own procurement policy that you file with us. We need to copy that to make sure you're following the correct procurement rules. Okay. Now, moving on, the next important thing would be paragraph 7, Brent. 7B, okay, subrecipient responsibilities. 7B. So I really encourage you to read this paragraph. This tells you specifically what your responsibilities are under the grant. Okay. So starting with, in this case, it tells you your MOA has to be signed and returned to us within 45 days for the 22 grant. For the 23 grant, you only have 30 days. Sign and send it back to us. So it starts off with how quickly you have to get the MOA back to us, right? Then it says you have to expend the money in accordance with all the guidance that we've already given you, right? Then it has the closeout reporting requirements that are required upon closeout, and it has the procurement rules in paragraph D. Now, the procurement rules can get very, you can scroll up the D, paragraph D there. You can take a week-long class on this, on procurement under federal grants. We've done that. It's a lot. I'm gonna try to break it down for just a couple minutes here, roughly the Cliff Notes version. If you're using federal money, okay, to expend on a project, so any federal grant that applies for, but NSGP in particular we're talking about here, okay, you're required to utilize the strictest of your own local procurement policy, state rules, or federal rules. Okay, so the most strictest requirements of the three. All right. So how does that manifest itself? Under federal law, there's something called a micro purchase threshold. Currently $10,000. They change it every so often. It's currently $10,000. Right. If your local policy says, here's what we spend our money on, right? We have money. But if we get federal money, we're going to follow the federal rules. Right? You can say that in your local policy. If you said that, anything you buy less than $10,000 is a micro purchase. You just buy that with a single quote. Go on Amazon and buy it. Right? Go pick a vendor and buy it. There's really nothing required if you're under the micro purchase threshold because in the grand scheme of things, it's such a small purchase, right? But let's say your local policy says you don't have that clause. Your local policy says all money we get, we spend anything over $2,000 or anything less than $2,000 is a micro purchase or small purchase, right? And if you're spending over that amount, you don't have the advantage of that micro purchase threshold because your micro purchase threshold is smaller than that, right? So that's the strict requirement of the law. So if the federal micro purchase threshold is 10,000, but yours is 2,000, right? You're going to apply your micro purchase threshold, right? So you're kind of making it more difficult on yourself, right? So I would encourage you if you're going to do a procurement policy. I've seen policies written this way. I think they're good. You just say if there's any federal funding, we're going to send that federal funding in accordance with the federal rules. Then once you exceed $10,000, between $10,000 and $250,000, it's called simplified acquisition threshold. Get your question in a second, sir. Called the SAT. All right. With the SAT, yeah, and basically it's not a micro procurement, okay, but you have to do a price or cost analysis to support what you're going to buy, and then you can really just buy that with a quote or two. Sometimes people get 3 quotes that are in accordance with that price analysis, right? So you kind of say how much you think it's going to cost. You get a quote that matches that, and you meet the requirements for an SAT. Okay. If you're over $250,000, this is under federal law, and full bidding applies, full procurement is done, but not for public bid.
For NSGP, that doesn't apply because you can only get awarded up to 150 per location. So if you had 3 locations and you had the 450, it applies to each location. So that's at $150.
Yeah. So that's kind of the rules, right? Now, having said all that, the safest thing, if you want to go ahead and do a full bid, put it out for bid, you can do that, right?
3 quotes.
You can do that, right? Do a full bid if you want. But that's the rule set that we're trying to say in there. Okay. So it's easier if you're buying smaller dollar items in terms of procurement. What's your question, sir?
So local means you are talking about the organization.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no policy. Yeah. That's why we want a copy. We know what the federal rules, state rules are. We don't know what your rules is. That's what we have to get a copy.
And a federal rule says $10,000 is a
micro purchase. Yeah, less than $10,000 micro purchase, between 10 and 250, it's a simplified acquisition. SAT. Yeah. And then all those links are in this, all this language, are giving, all that information's in here in this MOA.
Yeah, I'm just asking because we don't have a MOA yet.
Yeah.
And we have to prepare procurement policy,
Yeah.
so we kind of want to meet the requirements, so.
In your case, because you don't have one, you can say you're just following the federal procurement
Okay.
policy.
Okay,
But, you know, maybe your organization, when you talk to your board or whatever, they may want to go with a smaller threshold amount.
but we
Yeah.
can say that, in our policy, we'll make it that we will just follow the
Federal,
federal policy, so we don't have to make one.
You make your own, yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay,
That's
that
correct.
makes, that's good.
It's easy.
You got a question, Jeff?
I was just gonna say, and so the state's not as stringent as Fed, or because this is federal money, that's just what
Yeah,
it defaults to?
yeah, so we're passing the money through to y'all. Yeah, that's not how it works. Yeah. Yeah, for the state, we spend money basically, we have to follow state policy. That's what, right? We don't follow most strict, we just have to follow our state policy.
So the state policy is not relative to this particular.
They say follow the strict of the policy, but if you just say you're following federal rules or your local policy, you're gonna be okay. That's what it is. There's some certain required contract clauses that have to go into every contract you enter into. For the use of federal money, that's specified in this paragraph as well. It's in the regulations. We can't go over them all, but it's just boilerplate language. It's in the regulations. You have to include in your contracts if you ever into contracts. So that's in here as well for every procurement. So that's the gist of it, okay, to break it all down. Now, next important paragraph, and this is really important, most important, 7E, starts on page 4 and goes to page 5 of this document. This is how you submit your request for reimbursement. This is how you get paid. Okay, so you don't read anything else, at least read this paragraph. All right,
Yes, that's
So-
important.
basically, you're gonna submit it via email to us, okay? You're gonna submit your request, and it's a cost report form. It's gotta be for eligible costs for your project, right? So the way this MOA works is, attachment 1 of the MOA is the application that you submitted, right? That should prove scope of work that got approved. So it has to be an expenditure in support of your project that got approved, all right? You submit it to the email box, okay? And then it must include submission documentation to show the approved expenditures have been invoiced and paid. We've talked about this before, right? So an invoice or receipt, as well as proof that it was paid. Canceled check, bank statement, electronic payment statement, credit card statement, whatever is showing it was paid. So invoice, show it was paid. And you also have to include a summary of the expenditures, okay, with your request for reimbursement. So a spreadsheet, Word document, PDF document, whatever you want to call it. It's somebody say summarize, these are all the money I'm requesting with this request for reimbursement expenditure. Right? And what happens a lot of times is you might have an invoice that has multiple items on it, right? But you're only claiming a reimbursement with this grant for 1 or 2 of those items. Okay, you have to indicate, on that invoice, which items are being covered by this reimbursement request. Same with proof of payment. You want to have a bank statement that shows 50 different payments. You got to say, this is where this invoice was paid. This is where this invoice was paid, right? You got to show what documentation supports those expenditures.
And on the invoices, if you simply highlight the payment, the amount you're requesting, and then on the bottom write in, this is for the nonprofit security grant, the dollar amount. That's good.
Yeah, you can bring it right in. Yeah, we just got to make sure you identify which charges and which payments are associated with what you're planning.
And all forms are in the MOA that
Yeah.
we have to use it.
Yeah, yes, the cost report form, it's in the MOA, but what happens is you'll be sent a more specific cost report form. That's the MOA such.
Right.
That's going through our controller.
Cost report will start off with what your initial funding is. Then as you submit for reimbursement, then the balance, you'll see the balance going down. The available funds will say expended and the new balance. So that's the balance you'll be doing. And you cannot submit a cost report until I send you out an updated one. So from your first cost report, once that goes through our fiscal, they send us out a new one. It's an updated cost report. I in turn send that back to you for your next reimbursement request.
And then these are all electronically paid, right? So you have to be electronically.
Now they are, yes.
Yeah.
And also taxes are not reimbursable. Shipping charges are, taxes, no.
That's in the, I'll put that's in the MOA, not claim taxes, but you might pay them, but you can't claim for reimbursement. That's just the law.
So if we put a fence.
Yeah.
And he charged North Carolina state tax.
Yeah.
We cannot,
You gotta pay that yourself.
You have to pay that. And being a nonprofit, you don't pay taxes, you can
Request. No, that's what I was about to say,
Right,
like, but
right.
then we can,
request for,
That's what
yes,
my
when you
question
do your
was.
taxes, yeah.
Or be exempt. But-
I was about to say. yeah,
But you have an invoice that says this equipment costs $100, right? And the taxes are $10, so the total invoice is $110. You can only get reimbursed $100. You can't get reimbursed, so don't claim 110. You got one say $100, you can't claim the tax. That's basically what this is saying. All right, so that's a very important paragraph. Other than that, let's see, what else do we got? Got some really important things. Okay. Equipment. All right, so paragraph N on page 5. Okay, it just talks about equipment. So paragraph 7N. Basically, what all this is saying is you're buying equipment. So fencing, cameras, gates, whatever you're buying, bollards, whatever equipment you're buying with this grant. Okay. Essentially, it's yours. Okay. When the grant's over, it's yours to do with what you want with. Okay. But during the period of performance of the grant, you have to make sure it's inventoried correctly, right? If we ask to see pictures of it, or proof that it's up and installed, we can do that anytime. We can do a site inspection to make sure it was actually done and put in, right? You have to inventory, you have to maintain it in good working order, okay, during the period of performance of the grant. Once the period of performance of the grant's over, okay, it's yours to keep. However, okay, it's a very confusing rule. Sometimes people don't understand this. Your obligation continues with respect to the amount of federal funds you spent on that project. You decide to dispose of that equipment later. Okay, so let's just say you bought a bunch of cameras, okay, and you want it with federal funds. You want to sell them years after the grant closes. Okay, what you have to do is you have to maintain the proof of what the fair market value is of those items. Okay, and when you dispose of them, if the fair market value is less than $5,000, you can keep the money what you want with it. If it's over $5,000, then you have to notify us. We have to notify FEMA. There's some paperwork that has to be filled out. And FEMA could request reimbursement of that amount over $5,000. They retain a federal interest in it. I've never seen them do that, but the law says they can. So most people will just, what you'll do is you'll buy the stuff, keep depreciation records on it. And once it's depreciated down to less than $5,000, then you sell it and you're good to go. If you want to try to sell something while the fair market value is still greater than $5,000, you need to let us know. You need to let FEMA know. You can let an interest in that property.
So if the whole premise of this grant is to security.
Yeah.
So we put a camera
Yeah.
and during the grant period, someone vandalize it.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like we have to report immediately if we put a gate and someone try to enter through the gate and damage the gate.
You gotta fix it.
So we have to just report to you guys that, no, that's what we have to do, but we have to report and how does it work,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's a good question.
That is a good question. A fence is nothing that you're gonna sell, so I don't think that's something we have to worry about. But now, cameras, depending on the cost of them.
I think he's asking, if I put up a camera and somebody comes by and shoots it with a BB gun, do I have responsibility to go buy a new camera and stick it up because I'm?
Yeah, that's another thing, and like, how does it work like in those kind of situations?
Yeah,
Because this is equipment and it's technically owned by the federal government, FEMA.
I think a rule reasonableness applies here, I think you have a reasonable duty to safeguard the equipment, right? Do what you can to protect it.
Yeah.
If you've done all that and damage still occurs, probably want to let us know about it and we can check with FEMA. But my guess is they're gonna say, no problem,
Yeah, I would get a police report that's backing.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything, so yeah.
Yeah. But technically, you're supposed to maintain that equipment during the period of performance.
Because there was a vandalism happening.
Yeah, it's 1 year off.
And you said, during the, homes agreement, if you're closed before you end of your 3 years,
You're gonna,
you still gotta go to 3 years.
Yeah.
Or once you close, you're closed.
yeah, so what happens is, we're gonna close out in the grant and further on in the MOA here. But basically, when you want to close out, you have to submit certain documents to us, okay? Then we may do a site visit or not, we'll review all the documentation. If there's no issues or problems, we then issue you a letter, a one-page letter saying your grant is closed, you're done. Once you get that, you're good. And you do that before the period performance. So period performance is the max amount of time.
And right before, when you do let us know that, you know, funds are completely expended, we'll send you out an email telling you what documentation we're gonna require.
It's a big money.
Yes.
That's it. So basically, that's the equipment. Now, the other confusing thing about equipment is technically, the AEL applies. There's a link here to the authorized equipment list, right? So you're supposed to make sure it's when you buy equipment, it's on the AEL. Okay, so you gotta go and find the AEL number for that.
On the NSGP, on the IJs, in 22 and 23, when they went to the fillable, in that section where you're gonna be requesting, what projects you're gonna do, there's drop downs that give you the list of the approved AELs that you can apply for under.
Yes.
And it's just, that's just a type of equipment. It doesn't say it's that particular vendor, it just tells you like categories of equipment.
And there is an Excel file also
Yeah.
that you can on the
That is
website.
correct, yes, that you can pull up that total list, but that list is so long, that's
Yeah,
why
I
they
know,
broke
but-
it down to just the drop downs
Yeah.
for, this grant.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then if you look at paragraph on page 6, little paragraph 6, so it's page 6.
Contract security person.
Paragraph 7 and little 6. I told you a lot of legal stuff here. Contract security personnel. You want to talk about that, Brad? What the rules are for contract security personnel?
Contract security personnel. You can apply to up to 50% of the requested, what you're requesting funding for. So if you're requesting 150,000, you can apply for 75,000 for contract security personnel. This is a big issue with FEMA. What it means is you just can't go out to say your local police department or your local sheriff's department. I'm a former police officer, so a lot of police departments, what they do now is they try to monitor officers' off-duty activities as far as work. So they have their own agencies within the police department that they'll send out off-duty police officers. FEMA does not want you to go and contract with a police department, a sheriff's department, off-duty police officers. They want you to go to a security company. So say there's somebody who has like allied security or different security agencies that are out here. You go under contract with that security company, that's fine. Now, if an off-duty police officer is working for that agency, then he can work. But they want you to shy away from going directly to law enforcement agencies because inherently a law enforcement officer is on duty 24/7. So there's a little conflict there of interest. Federal funds going to law enforcement agents. So that be very careful on that, who you pick, because you can go to a law enforcement agency. We've had issues where it slipped through, all of a sudden looked at the invoice and it was made out to a police department off-duty section. Well, then we had to go to FEMA and we had to go through a lot. You could be denied reimbursement for the security if that's the case. So just a heads up on that. Okay.
Again, no more than 50% of your work can be used for contracted security personnel, right? That should be in your approved application as well. That's actually a federal law, it's a requirement. If you don't do that, we have to get a waiver, legal waiver for it. The other thing is, I think this is correct, Brad, we're not able to purchase equipment for contracted security personnel with NSGP grants.
No.
So if you hire a contract security personnel, you can't buy equipment for them with federal funds. Our own funds are fine, but not with federal funds. That's in this paragraph here we just talked about.
They can do training though.
And then paragraph O is more about the property equipment that we talked about, so we don't have to worry about covering that again. We did that pretty well. Paragraph P, Brad, indirect costs. No indirect costs or administrative costs allowed with this grant. So there's no overhead. You can't claim overhead on this grant. It's only for direct project costs, right? I know nonprofits have overhead, right? It's a legitimate expense. But it's not paid with this grant.
You can apply for 5% for M&A for this grant. 5% of the requested amount that you're requesting. So M&A costs can be 5%, up to 5%.
Is that on
That
that?
M&A was,
Yeah, is that on that with the award?
No, it's not automatic. You have to apply for it.
yeah, that's what I was like, we have to apply in the beginning.
Yes, when you submit your
Submit the
IJ, you
IJ.
can request it as part of the drop down. It's one of the drop downs for M&A.
Yeah.
You can request 5%. You can't come back after you're awarded and you didn't request it to say, hey, I want to apply 5% of the grant to M&A. Now, have to do it. Okay.
Apply for M&A, now luck, direct cost only. All right. Moving on, conflict of interest, paragraph S, a lot of stuff on this. But basically, this is common sense, okay? At least for federal funds, hopefully all your funds apply these same rules, but just say your director of your organization also has an outside business, okay? He has a fence business, all right? And you get this money from FEMA, okay? And put in a fence for your organization, turn around and give that business to your board of directors company, okay? That's at least an appearance of a conflict of interest, not a real conflict of interest. That's gonna cause problems, okay? It's best, when in doubt, to competitively bid it out, right? Seek bids or solicitations competitively, let everybody compete fairly, and you go based on the best price, right? Reasonable price, best price. You don't want to funnel that money to insiders, or else you're gonna be problems. That's the gist of this. I know it sounds kind of silly, but people actually do these things a lot, they get caught, it's bad news then, it's bad for the organization. Right, so please avoid conflicts of interest. That's pretty much what all this stuff says. All right, the EHP compliance is paragraph T on page 7 of that. We'll go to that. That's your EHP. There's the link in there we were talking about. You can see where the reports are that you're required to file, and all the information is there. And again, with EHP, as Brad described with all this grant, we're kind of just the middleman between you and FEMA, right? So we have nothing to do with how long this really takes. All we do is get the information from you, turn it over to FEMA, then they have to complete the review and get it back to you. I know it's frustrating. We're not involved in that process at all. We just collect the information, turn it over to FEMA, they do the review, get back to you.
And
So we should not do any work until
Exactly.
you cannot do any. If you do, you may not get funded, you may not get
Okay.
reimbursed for it.
we must not do single work until EHP come.
Right, because what can happen is if FEMA comes and does an audit, and they see that you have expenditures before you received your completion, those funds are now that's the what you can't, you're not supposed to be reimbursed, and you may have to reimburse FEMA for that. But 9 times out of 10, if you submit a cost report to me and you don't have an EHP, I won't submit it for payment because you don't have it. Here in the MOA, it does state that you have 120 days from the date you sign off on the MOA to get your EHP reviews to us.
120.
120, yes.
Again, the way it was described to me is for your own benefit protection as well as everybody else, because let's just say, like I said, the example I gave, if this turns out to be sacred burial ground, and you put a shovel and disturb that ground, right? You've broken the law. In fact, law using federal funds for that, right? So if you do that before you have an EHP certificate, you technically broke the law, right? So if you have the EHP certificate first saying it's good to dig that dirt there, you're clear, and it protects you. That's the way it's been described to me. So please don't start the project until the EHP says you're clear. We'll save you headaches no longer.
Derek,
Yes, please, go ahead.
yes, in the interest of time, we have 3 minutes left in this meeting. I'm going to jump off and go ahead and join the office hours.
Okay,
Since that's
Good.
scheduled to begin in 3 minutes. So I'll be on there monitoring any questions virtually. I don't know who you have in person there.
Yeah.
Is the office hours being held in person outside of your classroom?
no, it's in this classroom. What time's the office hour start from?
In 3 minutes.
Okay, we'll open the door and let them in. Yeah. Do we have anybody coming in person? Supposedly? Okay. All right. Yeah, so go ahead and monitor Lisa for us, and we'll wrap up in here. We'll open the door. Okay,
Yes, thank you.
so real quickly, paragraph 9 is the taxes. Okay, we talked about that. Paragraph 11 is the level 1, 2, and 3 reporting requirements. So everything you need to know, we talked about for level 1, 2, and 3 reporting requirements is detailed there. Paragraph 12